This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Okay, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, can't remember, but in one of these Wednesday lesson slots, I did a video on, I think it was 5 top tips for beginner guitar players. And what I'm going to do today is sort of a follow-on from that. These are 5 mistakes that you need to avoid as a beginner. Things that, mistakes that you can get into early on which become bad habits that will really kind of hold you back as you progress. So let's get cracking, starting with
finger bunching.
Yes, indeed, finger bunching. What am I talking about here? Well, basically, this I guess really applies to people who are, they've learned a few chords and they're starting to move on to playing some rudimentary lead guitar parts. Usually, when I'm teaching lead guitar novices how to play bits and pieces of lead guitar, we start with this pentatonic run. Okay, now let's just have a look at the first part of that. We start by playing this note with this finger, then this note with this finger. And I see lead guitar novices and beginners in general doing this. Their whole hand bunches up around that first note like this. And then their whole hand bunches up around that second note like this. And then it's back over to here, and then it's over to here like this. That the entire hand is, kind of focusing and centering on that one note, which makes the next note much further away and difficult to get to. Okay, I get people all the time saying, well, I can't reach that note over there. It's just too far away. Well, bring your fingers more parallel to the frets and suddenly it's easy. The exercise that pretty much everybody knows, or has gone through at some point in order to counter this, and it's a good little practice thing to do, a little warm-up exercise, is the spider exercise, where you just kind of walk across the strings like this. So that's one finger per fret, like that. And that will encourage you to get out of that habit of finger bunching. So that's the problem, and that's potentially the cure for it. Next.
Coming off the strings.
Yeah, I should really have called this coming too far off the strings, because obviously you need to, move your fingers from string to string in order to do chord changes and anything else that you're going to play on the guitar. What I'm talking about here is that essentially when you're first learning your first chords, like maybe you've got the E chord and maybe the D chord, and you want to kind of learn to move between them like that. What many people do is they think, okay, how did I learn this chord? And they start putting that finger there, and then that finger there, and then that finger there. And then when it's time to change to a D chord, okay, how did I learn this chord? Okay, so that finger goes there, and that one goes there, and that one goes there. So that becomes the default way that you change between chords. If you're not careful, your fingers all come off and you start building the chord again from scratch. A lot of what makes playing the guitar seem difficult is when you can't move your fingers from where they are to where they need to be in time to get to where they need to be in time to play along with the music. And if you're, kind of deliberately but unconsciously, I suppose, if you're basically making the notes that you need to move to further away than they need to be, then that is what's going to cause a lot of that. Always look for a finger which needs to move first to get from one chord to another. For instance, if I'm going from an E chord to a D chord, then it's this finger. That's where it lives in the E chord, right there. And that's where it lives in the D chord, right there. So I can make that entire chord change just pivot on that one simple little movement, like that. And there is always, when you're doing a chord change, a finger that will lead the charge, that will kind of move first, and then providing you've got the destination chord, the destination shape memorized sufficiently well, once you've got one finger in place, the other fingers will just be magnetically attracted to the locations that they need to go to. It's very important you don't get into the habit early on of doing this and then looking where the next chord shape is from scratch. So don't come too far off the strings. It'll slow you down and make things difficult. Next.
Over-practicing.
Yeah, over-practicing is, in my experience, as counterproductive as under-practicing. It's like you've got the right amount of oil to put in an engine, and too much is equally as bad as too little. What I mean by this is when you're practicing, okay, what you are doing is you are playing things that are beyond your capabilities. Okay, that's what practice is. It's about kind of reaching beyond what you're comfortable doing and, extending that comfort zone, kind of little by little. So there is going to be, a fairly high failure rate when you're practicing. It might be a tricky chord change. It might be, a tricky lick or something like that. It's going to be tricky, whatever it is you're practicing. When you're just playing the guitar to kind of have fun and play stuff that's, that you find relatively easy, that's not practicing. That's performing, okay? Don't spend 2 hours playing all your easy stuff and think you've done 2 hours practice. You haven't, okay? You've been performing, okay? Whether it's for your own amusement and pleasure or other people's, it's still you're performing. When you're practicing, you're reaching beyond that comfort zone. So it's gonna kind of fail from time to time, and failure can lead to, frustration, and it's really want to be able to do this and I just can't do it. Okay, once you start getting to the point where your patience is wearing thin, that is your guitar's way of telling you to stop practicing for the day. Go and play some easy stuff. Go and play some fun stuff. Because if you continue to practice when everybody has a natural kind of, end of the string when it comes to their patience. Nobody has infinite amounts of patience. And once your patience is kind of ebbing to a low level, then put the guitar down or go and play something easy, right? Because you're going to get a bit stressed and a bit frustrated, and then you are going to start tensing up and, it becomes like a battle between you and the guitar. And you and the guitar, in order to play successfully, you and the guitar need to be operating as a single kind of slick, unit. You don't want to be really kind of getting angsty about it, because chances are it's going to make, it's not chances are, it will make things more difficult if you tense up, and you're probably not going to be as attentive to potential mistakes that you might be making, and you'll repeat those mistakes and they will become bad habits. So don't over practice. Don't practice beyond your natural reserve of patience, because that is counterproductive usually. So there you go. Next.
It's a song, not an assault course.
Yes, it's a song, not an assault course. What do I mean by this? Okay, you might have a song where the verse is really easy. It's just easy chords and you can play them and you can strum them with a degree of fluency and everything. And the chorus is probably, or possibly equally as accessible and doable. But there's that one tricky chord change in the middle eight, in the bridge section, where it just doesn't seem to kind of just, your fingers just can't quite do it. The number of people who treat a song with that kind of problem in it for them as like an army assault course, where they fall over this particular obstacle and then feel like they've got to go right back to the beginning again and start all over again. That wastes so much time and it's counterproductive. Why is it counterproductive? Well, because you're playing away and you're having fun and you're doing all the easy chord changes, and then suddenly, you're about 4 bars away from that one that is tricky. and that starts preying on your mind, and you start thinking, oh, hope I don't trip over that chord change. And while you're worrying about tripping over that chord change, you're not concentrating on the easy chords. So you're probably going to fluff those as well. And if a chord change, if you're thinking about, hope I don't make a mistake here, hope I don't make a mistake here, hope this doesn't go wrong, guess what? Guess what's going to happen? It's going to go wrong. It's like if I say to you now, don't think of a black cat. What's the first thing that pops into your head, the first image? See what I mean? If you're worrying about making a mistake, you're focusing on the mistake. So, it's going to happen. The best way to do it is to take that tricky chord change or tricky passage out of the song and practice it slowly. Use a metronome, okay? To slow it down and just get used to the moves necessary to make. As I was saying earlier, there's always one finger which needs to lead the charge to go from this chord to that chord. A good one, for instance, is if you've got to go from an open chord to a bar chord. So say you're going from a G to a B minor, okay? For me, it's always this second finger that I find I need to get that anchored in place there, and once that's there, I can get the chord on, especially when you go into bar chords. A lot of people, when they're playing bar chords, it's all about that finger getting on there. And remember what I was saying earlier about your fingers not coming too far off the strings? Okay, well, the quickest way from there to there is not via over here somewhere, okay? So find the finger that needs to kind of move first and lead the way from one chord to another, and practice that chord change over and over and over again, and until it begins to feel comfortable. Then start putting it into the context of the song, and you'll notice that you've removed the fear from that tricky chord change, and suddenly you're not worrying about it. So the mistakes tend to happen less frequently, and it's not preying on your mind while you are playing the easier chord changes that come before it and causing those to go wrong. So there you go. It's a song, not an assault course. Just find the difficult bit, work on it as an exercise, then put it back into the context of the song, rather than having to go back to the beginning of the song every time and just hoping that it doesn't go wrong this time, when it probably will. Next.
The Vulcan Death Grip.
Yeah, the Vulcan Death Grip. This goes back to what I was saying earlier on about not over-practicing. It's the more tense you are and the more you're kind of gripping the guitar for dear life. Okay, if you are absolutely kind of squeezing the hell out of a chord shape like that, and your hand is tense, and your whole body is tense, and you've got the Vulcan Death Grip going on the neck of the guitar, then guess what happens when it comes to moving to another chord? It's suddenly, you're trying to push the car with a handbrake on. It's not going to be as easy, okay? When you first start learning to play the guitar, especially if you had a guitar like I did when I first started with a horrible accent, first acoustic guitar I had, I could fit a biro pen between the strings and the frets by the 5th fret. That was the kind of action I had. So, I don't think there are that many guitars that are that badly set up nowadays. But for beginners, you do need to exert what feels like a lot of pressure on the neck, on the strings rather, to get the chords to ring out. But you soon build up the necessary strength, and you don't need to try as hard once that strength has accumulated. So that said, just use the minimum amount of pressure. A good little test that you can do is press down as hard as you can with this hand, and then just back it off until you've got kind of muted strings from the chord like that, and then just add the minimum amount of pressure to get the chord to come out clean again like that. That is then the correct amount of pressure to exert on chords, and you'll find that it makes it much easier to change to other chords because you're not sort of gripping the chord that you're playing. Another thing that can happen when you grip too hard is, if I just try and demonstrate here, this note in this chord, that's the right amount of pressure to place on the note, and if I press too hard, can you hear it's kind of bending it slightly out of tune just by... It's just kind of causing it to go slightly sharp. So, gripping too hard, your chords will be difficult to change because, as I say, you're pushing the car with a brake on, and your chords will sound a little bit out of tune, well, quite significantly out of tune, possibly as well, by gripping too hard. So don't exert the Mr. Spock Vulcan death grip on the neck, because it's just not going to make things sound good or easy to play. And there you go, folks. Those are the 5 essential tips I would give on mistakes to avoid for beginners. If you are a beginner and you are one of my Patreons, then, as you know, there is a free course that I give to all my patrons. By the way, if you are a new Patreon and you haven't received your free course, it's probably because I haven't had the notification from Patreon yet. Sometimes I get them, sometimes I don't. So, if you're a new Patreon, just give me an email. You can see the website on screen there. Use the email form on the website. Let me know and I'll send you the course. But if you're a beginner and you're new to me on Patreon as well, then I'd recommend that you choose the complete beginner's guide to the guitar, I think it's called, or how to play guitar. Basically, an entry-level guitar playing course that you can have. In fact, what I'll do is I'll post the link to that course in the Patreon thing for this video today. And that is pretty much all I've got for you, folks. Hope you found the video useful and informative, and if you have, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not give me a like while you're at it? Don't forget the live stream Friday 5 PM UK time, where we drink beer and talk about music and guitars and all manner of good stuff. What a fantastic way to kick off the weekend. I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.